Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. I get a doff of the cap from our guest today. The man behind Too Much Coffee Man, the man of many a New Yorker cartoon, and currently one of the co-authors of the Mueller Report. Man, oh man, Shannon Wheeler, adapting the Mueller Report to comic book form. Brilliant. Great to see you. How are you?
Thank you. Pretty good.
Good deal,
Rainy
man.
day, so I'm a little bit spaced out from it.
No worries. Are you on the West Coast, Shannon? I forget.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon these days.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, geez. All right. And I'm sure it's rainy season and everything. So
It's just hitting. Yeah, it's driving me crazy.
I'm sorry I missed you last summer at Rose City Con.
Yeah. Did I
Were you
guess
there?
I didn't go. No, it seemed like I went off to a book festival someplace or something. I missed it somehow.
Understood. Yeah, it was just actually this weekend I was telling Matt Wagner the same thing. Because, God, so many of you are living in Portland. How long have you been there?
21 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah,
Well,
Dark Horse was here, so I moved out thinking, okay, there'll be parties and I'll know people. So it was kind of like jumping in a pool with a bunch of my friends.
right. And you're right. Certainly Dark Horse out there and everything. And I know Matt, like I just said, Matt's out there. And now, good Lord, a whole new wave of, slightly younger creators and stuff. Brian Bennett's a good friend.
Yep.
Stayed with him and saw Fraction and Kelly Sue and Rucka and Jen Van Meter.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, that's who I saw at Rose City, and that's who I was hanging out with that way. Steve Lieber and Jeff Parker also went to Periscope or Helioscope or Periscope? Helioscope.
Helioscope now, yeah. It
Yeah.
was Periscope, yeah, they changed.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, man, and it was great. It was my first time in the city. I loved it.
Oh, neat. We just lost Matt Bors. I mean, he moved to Canada, so we lost one of our political cartoonists. But
wow. Yeah, Shannon. I mean, I know you've been doing how many years have you been doing New Yorker stuff now?
2008. So what is it? 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 12 years.
I think that's when I met you. Was when you just started doing New Yorker stuff. Russ Ritchie of Boom introduced us.
Oh,
and
great. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it well. And yeah, man. No, I'm so happy for you. And how many collections of New Yorker comics have you put in books?
I would say 3.5. I did 3 with Boom. Thought You'd Be Funnier, and then the 2 sequels, and then I did 1 with Image. I did a book collecting a bunch of short stories and a lot of New Yorker cartoons. But it's kind of odds and ends, and so that one sort of New Yorker, sort of not. It was called Camp Micropenis. That's the main, that's the lead story.
That's a working title.
Yeah, but they were like, no, we don't want to do Camp Micropenis. You got it. So I called it Memoirs of a Stable Genius, Very Stable Genius. So
Outstanding, man. So I gotta ask, obviously, and we'll get into the Mueller report, which is it's so great, man. Honestly, I mean, it is all there, and thank God you guys have. Who's your co-author? Forgive me.
it's Steve Dean, and he's
Steve Dean.
just amazing. Like I needed a partner on it. I started it with IDW, and then just saw how in over my head I was. And Steve is a journalist and a very bright guy, so he was able to really do the heavy lifting on it.
Well, here's a great representation. Is it in coffee table format, widescreen, or is it
No,
regular book?
we started it off that way because I was wanting to do it. Here's the
There you go.
Yeah, you got the PDF of it.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking of doing it as a kind of a stripped format using the Dick Tracy style.
Sure.
But then as we got into it, it just made more sense to do it, just like a kind of a comic book proportions.
Understood. And it is IDW published it, or
Yeah, they
Excellent.
did a good job, and the graphic design is great. I've been happy with them.
That's awesome. And much like the adaptation of the 9/11 report of years ago, something like this really does need to be, kind of formatted in a digestible way. Will Eisner, as I'm sure you know, kind of led the way with that decades ago. Either he went to the army and was like, these technical manuals that you're giving the servicemen, they're boring as hell. Like maybe if you juice them up a little bit with a little bit of humor and illustrations and stuff, and they're like, yeah, run with it. And my God, the man worked for like several decades, PS Magazine, and then he turned that over there, I know, to Joe Kubert.
Oh, I didn't realize I went to Kubert.
Yeah, so I mean that's why it's a great, like I said, tradition of like taking stuff that you might be like, God damn, this is overwhelming and stuff. As an artist, taking this report and turning it into illustrated reportage, was daunting task, or tell me about it.
Yeah, the first half is definitely boring because Mueller lays a lot of groundwork down, but then the second half is where you really start to get into the anecdotes, where you have Chris Christie meeting with Mueller. It's just these weird stories, and then he's getting these firsthand experiences from people that he's interviewing. And Mueller worked from the bottom up, so he'd start flipping people at the lower levels, getting these stories, and then slowly work his way up. And a big part of it too is I just thought, like, well, two things. I mean, one, I wanted to understand it, and the best way for me to learn about something and understand it is just to do a project about it. And the same thing with the Bible, where I wanted to learn about the Bible.
Sure.
And then so I worked with Mark Russell and did the Bible adaptation because I just and like with the Mueller report, like it's not to mock or tear down Trump. It's like I want to understand what Mueller had to say about this and what the investigation was about, especially since so many people try to spin it for their personal. Same with the Bible. They do, people want to spin it into this or that thing. So it's interesting. A side effect is like when people talk about this, you can tell when they're full of crap because they just start lying and saying, "Oh, the Mueller report says this," and everybody knows from the Mueller report, and then they lie, and you're like, yeah. Same with the Bible. They're like, when people start talking about the Bible now, it's like, yeah, that's not really what Hosea is about.
I love the fact, and forgot that you had done the Bible, and especially I just talked to Mark Russell last week. I talked to him last Wednesday, and
man, that's great.
And I would have talked to him about that too, because then again, I think of the '70s Treasury edition of the Bible that DC put out, and it was, God, was it Kubert and Shelley Moldoff?
I think it was. I can't remember. Was it? I can't remember the other, but it was Kubert for sure. Yeah, Kubert. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in, and I know, and Crumb, didn't Crumb do something with the
Crumb
Bible?
did Genesis. So
oh,
he did
okay.
the first book
Yeah.
and chronicled it, and he said that he started out wanting to do a parody of it, and then he said it was just so weird that doing it straight was parody enough.
Did you look at Crumb's stuff, and did you look at the old Treasury
Totally.
Edition?
Yeah, and Wolverton is where
Yes.
Wolverton I just love so much. So I was stealing. No, I steal from as many people as I possibly can. So of course I look at that. Like, how do you draw a toga? I don't know how to do these little tweets. Like, let me see. What does Kubert do? Oh, look at that. But it turns out Crumb stole a lot of his costume ideas from old movies. So he just
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I was going to say regarding the Mueller report too. What's amazing is you guys leave in all the redactions.
Yeah.
So really, there are pages literally just like you see in like a great espionage movie where someone's going through a file and it's like, all right, here's 3 lines and then a whole shitload of black paragraphs and then maybe 3 lines at the bottom. There you go. Boom. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Hold on. You leave it up there. Leave it up there because I'll solo you there. There you go. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it, man. I usually am better prepared. But yeah, this is the kind of crazy stuff and everything. And
it is. I mean, the redactions, it's a little bit overblown because, he definitely, Barr went in and redacted things for personal interest, but a lot of the redactions did have to do with prosecuting Stone, I think. I mean, you can kind of infer what was redacted, and a lot of it was the ongoing investigations, and Stone really was a linchpin for a bunch of that, the connections to Russia and Ukraine and such.
okay.
And so it's not the redactions aren't quite as outrageous as the left or whatever would have you believe, but they're definitely criminal. I mean, it's definitely Barr and Trump wanting to cover up their tracks, So.
Sure. No, I understand. Again, the report itself is redacted. Was there a vetting process to create this comic? Did you guys have to go through any sort of governmental vetting process, and how long did it take?
No government. I wish that would have been great.
Shannon Wheeler, we have your file. Here it is.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a file.
Boom.
Yeah, I think I went to Cuba in '96.
Did you really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Snuck in. Like, we flew down through Cozumel. You get your passport. They put a piece of paper in your passport and they stamp that, and you keep this. Yeah, I went.
All right, tell me. All right, yeah, no, you got to tell me about Cuba right now. Wait a minute. So, and what were you doing down there? What'd you do?
I went with a bunch of kind of ex-journalists and journalists. There's a friend of mine at the newspaper organized a trip, and he just said, "Hey, Shannon, you want to draw the T-shirt? We're going to go down to Cuba and tour around. And if you draw the T-shirt, you can go for free." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so, I did the T-shirt, and we went to play softball with some journalists in Cuba. And it was silly. I mean, it was fun. But I met some of the old Weatherman people, and so now the Weatherman's brought up as like this revolution. It's like, oh, I know those. Like, at the time when I went, I barely know who Che Guevara was. I just, I'm fairly clueless as I go through this life and just gonna stumble along. But now, like, I hear, like I'm watching Fox and they're like, oh, the revolutionaries, the Weathermen, and they're blowing up buildings. It's like, oh, I know those guys. Like, oh, yeah. I know what Steve was doing. Like, I talked to him. And, he's like, oh, yeah, we burned up the ROTC building, the ROTC building. And, he's laughing about it. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, but it was neat. It felt very, just everything was kind of frozen in time in the 50s, where it just felt like the water had gone down and these old beautiful buildings. And it was interesting to see cities without advertising. Um, and the people were super nice.
Cool.
And they were just like, oh, Castro, yeah, he's old and it's a little bit fascist here, and he arrests gays and prostitutes. But
Wow.
in a few years he'll be dead, and we'll move on, and it'll open up, and it's fine. They had a very laissez-faire attitude. It was
well, and certainly in the '90s, I know Clinton was really trying hard to normalize Cuban relationships and everything. So I understand that. And it's funny you mentioned the '50s. One of my father's favorite stories. He's since passed, but in '57, he and his buddies spent a week in Cuba, and he would seriously, in Godfather 2, when they'd have the Cuban scenes. He's like, that's exactly what it was like.
Wow.
And he's like, it was like East Coast Vegas
in
terms of how open it was during the Batista times and everything. And that's when he went. And he went deep sea fishing and all that stuff. And truly, and this was one of his last great rides as a bachelor, was doing all this stuff. And I love telling this story because it's so insane, and especially the way money was back then. He and his buddies blew through $2,000 in 5 days. And my dad had a restaurant. He had a pizzeria in the '50s, and his business neighbor 2 doors down was a funeral parlor. And he wires the guy, and he's like, hey, float me $2 more grand, and I'll pay you back when I get back to the States. And they did, and they kept going. And it was just my dad's name was Jim, Diamond Jim, as we used to call him.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, he's totally Ralph Cramden, man. When I had the money, I spent it, baby. I spent it. And it's like, all right, I can see that. And my dad's friends are still alive. They're like, oh, my God, Jimmy was insane that weekend. I'm like, I don't think I want to know, but okay.
The funny thing is, people talk about these conspiracies or that, these really bad intentions, but most people are just living their lives and just kind of getting through, and are nice to each other, and are just trying to, have a good beer and laugh for the evening.
Well, honestly, man, I understand the frustrations of our current American society, and just what you described is really in a lot of ways just the average worker. It's like, hey, man, I'm just trying to make it to the weekend.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep a roof over my head and feed my kids and worry about my job. And sometimes the big politics get away from them. And as a consequence, they forget sometimes how important it is to stay informed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might wake up and go, wait a minute, we can't do what anymore? Or these people can't come in the country anymore? And it's like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And I really think, obviously, we went through. I mean, we all know what we went through the last 4 years. Was this time, as a political cartoonist, was this time energizing for you, or was it like, Jesus Christ, here we go, now another thing? Because do you know Mike Norton, the Chicago cartoonist? He was doing at the beginning of Trump's term, he called it Little Donnie, and he just on his own was doing political cartooning and stuff, and just trying it out. And doing 2 or 3 a week, and after the second year, he's like, I can't do it anymore, man. It's not funny to me anymore, and it really kind of hurts me to do this now. So he stopped doing it. So I mean, again, you've been doing it for a lot longer and stuff, and just what was it like?
It's a burnout, and it's the outrage. Yeah, and I thought doing the Mueller Report, I thought the Ukraine call was genuinely outrageous. I thought when he was getting impeached for Ukraine, it's like, yeah, this is clear. You listen to it, or, you read the transcript, and it's clear what he did and what he was doing. And I thought, yeah, this is definitely impeachable. And at the very least, we should all be outraged by this behavior, because it's so inappropriate. And I thought, doing the Mueller Report and the cover-up that they did, the obstruction that Trump and his cronies did, was genuinely wrong and offensive. And I thought, this is Watergate times 2.
Totally.
And so then, as we went, after the report comes out, and then Barr spins it, and then there's another scandal, and then after that there's another scandal, and it just is like the watermark for where the horror is just kept going up. Like the floodwaters kept rising. So he kept outdoing himself. Yeah, it was absolutely exhausting. And, I made a good living off of, I did the Trump illustrated tweets, the Mueller Report, a zine on the Ukraine call. Like, yeah, I've done a lot of political cartoons and made a good amount of money off the Trump cottage industry. But I am so happy to give that up and to move on. I mean, it's not worth it, Like,
I do.
I would rather make fun of old hippies in the 60s and, like that's, let me go back to, I don't know. I can't wait till we're have boring politics again. That's what
I can't agree more, man. No, I know it's hopefully some semblance of normalcy will take over in the coming year, and I completely understand, and I agree. I'm a mimic, and I'll do a passing Trump, and it's easy to do. And I mean, and again, being in radio, a lot of my friends, the morning shows, like, God, I can get you in touch with a bunch of morning shows, and you can do it, and I'm like, it's not funny. And this was during the 2016 campaign, and I'm just like, yeah, I got to be honest, it's not funny. It's kind of scary. And then of course we lived through these 4 years, and it's like, okay. And I guess obviously everybody, you can tell that we're wearing our politics on our sleeves a bit. I don't blame you. And are you going to collect all your stuff like the Ukraine zine and some of these other things and make like a big kind of Trump era omnibus of some sort?
Yeah, I would like.
Great.
I'd like to make a little Trump library, and it would have a few books. Like I was thinking about doing the deleted tweets too, because that's sort of an interesting chronicle of what he tweeted and then later would delete. Like a lot of things where he was making fun of Obama for doing something, and then as soon as he had the opportunity, he leaned into it and did it. Like playing golf, and then he would go back and delete some old tweets that are incredibly hypocritical. So I like the deleted tweets. The Mueller Report, I think it is a historical document, and I think it's an important piece that hopefully over the next bit of time will say, hey, this guy needs to be convicted on some of these
actions.
Lies.
Let's call them lies. Absolutely, man. No, you're right. Man, I don't know though, because again, having lived through Watergate and Ford, Ford was obviously Nixon's vice president, and when he took over, he immediately pardoned him. I don't think Biden will pardon him per se, and I don't think on a federal level we'll see any action. But thank God, man, those New York prosecutors are tenacious, and they got plenty to work with.
I know they really do. The tax stuff is pretty intense.
Deutsche Bank and what kind of, man, I'm sorry everybody, because we've had enough of a year of politics, and we want to have fun and everything, but really just some of the things that the guy did. I have friends that are Trump supporters, and I'm like, and they know dirty business. My friends, we're Chicago, we got dirty aldermen, we got dirty government. It's just kind of a thing. And they're like, he's a good guy. I'm like, he's laundering money. Right. I'm like, don't kid yourself, man. And certainly the Mueller Report, with all the Russian connections and everything, it's like, it was so infuriating. And then when we finally get Mueller himself, and we're really expecting Elliot Ness, and all right, this is what he did. And poor Mueller, he's an older man, and is gathering his thoughts and wants to watch what he says. And comes off like Jimmy Stewart, and it's like, oh shit,
And he did his job. Like he was told to do, this is the pie that you need to cut and eat, and he cut it and he ate it. And then he thought that all the financial misdealings is going to be the next group of people to deal with. So it's hopefully people pick. Yeah, he was not the savior that people were expecting, but he did what he said he was going to do. So,
yeah, that's true too. No, you're right about that. That's very true. Look, man, honestly, this is an amazing book. And how long has it already been out?
Oh, I'm not even sure now. My sense of time is, I look at is it Tuesday or is it Thursday? I don't know. It feels like 6 months or a year or
Oh,
something.
wow. The book has been out that long.
No, I think it's been a month. I'm not even
Okay.
sure. I just,
Okay. No, I understand. From IDW. And, God, they, Dirk Wood had that great, I don't know if he's still doing it.
Full Bleed.
Full Bleed, yeah. Is he still doing it?
Well, he moved over to Image, so I don't
Okay.
know. I need to talk with him and see what's
Me
going
too.
on because, yeah, he's a good guy, and
I love Dirk.
I
Dirk's
want to
tremendous.
follow what he's up to. So
And yeah, I wasn't sure, but I know in one of the volumes of Full Bleed, he did he did a Cuban story about cartoonists. Did you meet any other cartoonists when you were in Cuba?
a couple, yeah. And what's funny is I was handing out this little mini comic of Too Much Coffee Man, the one where he goes to the future, and then everybody's in jail. Everybody's housed, clothed, and fed because everybody's in jail. And it was like one of the mini comics, and I was like, Nightbird, is this okay? I'm handing this out. It's kind of lefty political stuff, and he's like, yeah, this is the bread and butter for them. This is what they, lefty politics. This is what they were schooled on. So
Interesting. Sure.
yeah, it was great. Yeah, I met a couple cartoonists, a couple fine artists. I met a Black Panther who was
Wow.
accused of killing a cop who actually hijacked an airplane and flew it to Cuba.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah,
That's amazing.
we because of the journalist connection, we. But the odd thing is like how normal all these people are. You meet them and they're just like, it's just another person who's getting through the day. It's,
I the movie. I'm trying to remember if it was I think Spielberg made it. Munich from the early 2000s. That's what I loved about that movie. That it followed, the Israeli retaliation of the slaughtering of the Olympic team during the '72 Olympics in Munich, and you saw these terrorists, and they were all just like normal people. That I mean, God, the bomb maker was really a toy manufacturer, and that's how he understood the innards of how to make a time bomb and stuff.
right.
And it really was this like God, it's like no, these are just people that had a different political agenda, and their country called them to action. Kind of in that same way, when you think about World War II, the OSS always fascinates me because they really, Bill Donovan was just like grabbing people with certain special skills,
Right.
as Liam Neeson would say, and just like, all right, that would actually work for espionage. We need you to do X, and it's like, okay, it's Ozzie Nelson. Ozzie, we need you to go to war. All right,
All right.
Julia Child in China, working for the OSS and stuff. Oh yes, I did. I worked for them, and it's like, sounds great, Julia. Fantastic. Tell us more. No, I do appreciate that, and also, I'm a big boxing guy, so there's really a whole big Cuban mystique of the great amateurs for decades that come from Cuba and still occasionally defect and become pros here and everything. And yeah, it's so no, I'm always interested in Cuba, and a couple of my boxing friends have made the trip from the U.S. to Canada to Havana and stuff like that.
We'll go north. Oh yeah, because Chicago. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was in Austin. We were all in Texas, so we went.
Okay, that's cool.
Well, we'll have to go if once we get.
I'm for
through,
it.
we'll-
Maybe that'll be one of the Biden initiatives is to talk to Juan and normalize things finally. Hopefully,
Dang. Yeah.
that sounds great, man. That's hilarious. Here we are, two lefties. There you go, man. Welcome to the Bolshevik Review. It's me and Shannon. Absolutely, here we are. Absolutely.
I did an interview on RT Russian television.
Did you? Oh, please, Shannon. Honestly, that network. If everybody doesn't know, RT is this pro-Russian propaganda kind of news thing that, like, Larry King had a show there for a while, and some other very ultra-liberal people. They gave them platforms to talk. So tell me about RT, about the Mueller Report book.
Yeah. It was when we were just ramping up on it, and so they were asking what we were doing and what our goals were and what we were trying to do, and it was very straight. I mean, I was surprised because I was very nervous, but I was like, man, why, whatever, like, sure, why not? And
Well, you got nothing. I mean, it's the book speaks for itself, and it's so. Did they ask any weird questions? It would, I guess, would be the question.
no, that was what was so odd, is that it was very conversational, very relaxed, and felt very real. And it was, yeah, it was very much like, what is this book about? Why are you doing it? What are your goals with it? And yeah, just normal questions. And what do you think of Trump? And what do you think of this, the conflict in the administration? So it wasn't softballs, and it wasn't stupid, but it was just a straight. And that's another one of those things where I go into something thinking like, oh, this is going to be outrageous because I've heard a partisan point of view, and then you go and see it and you're like, oh, this is not a big deal. And even like when I lived in Texas and I would hang out with, Republicans or right wingers,
Sure.
And I'm still friends with Trump supporters.
Yeah.
Again, it's just like, oh, people hanging out, and we'll talk politics, and it is fine. Like, I just wish that our conflicts on the media would just tone down a little bit, so that, and doing the Bible too, I was really expecting when Mark and I did that, that we were going to be, there would be book burnings, and, the
Right.
Christians
Outrage.
would come out of the woodwork and just like, we'd be raked over the coals. But instead, we did readings in churches. We had youth pastors that were like, oh, this book is great. We love this. Like, this really appeals to the kids and really conveys the message of the Bible that we want to convey. So there's a reasonableness to human beings that we don't normally think of, and that is there.
And especially in this, I'm trying to think of the phrase, not representational politics, but essentially that, you really do stand up and you're on your team, and then you hear things like what you just described. And also, I loved when it seemed like there was a vein of Christians that loved Ned Flanders on the Simpsons, and they're like, Ned Flanders actually is a really good Christian. He's forgiving, and he tries to accept Homer for what he is, and it's like, oh, that's really great that they get it, as opposed to Reverend Wildman or whoever it is that is out across the street in San Diego,
Right.
with the signs. Only God, Jesus is my superhero. And it's like, yeah, we like Jesus. It's all right. We're cool. We love Jesus. And then also, speaking of Mark Russell and Second Coming, God, that's such a great story that he's telling with Jesus and his superhero roommate and stuff, and them having great conversations. And the odd couple.
The Second Coming, he did kind of as a zine early on, and that's what he did a series of called the Superman stories. I hope I'm not revealing too much about it, but that's what I was like. Holy crap! This is hilarious and it's great. And then he did kind of a three book piece, and the third book was Jesus getting kicked out of heaven to have to go live with Superman, and that's when. I read those years ago, and I was like, oh, I want to meet this guy. I want to hang out with him. So I started bugging him, and we'd go have beer together. And that's when we started talking about the Bible. And I was like, let's do the whole Bible. Let's do this.
That's great, man. Seriously, and I do. I absolutely see your guys' humor, like fitting in with each other. So I'm really glad that happened. I hope there's room for a future collaboration. And you mentioned that his zine had Jesus and Superman. He's doing a Superman future state story that's going to be out next year, and it's Superman and Luthor on Lexor, and Lexor is the planet where Luthor is deified and really the savior of Lexor, and that's going to be great to see. And I'm thrilled that he's getting this opportunity. I love all of his superhero stuff. Did you ever want to do superhero stuff yourself?
Yeah, I still do. I've had. I mean, but some of the ideas that I've had that I wanted to do have since been kind of. I've been watching them happen, like with the
Oh,
boys. It's like I had a series of ideas, and then the boys come, and it, and it's done so much better by some of these people than I could have done. So watching these things happen one by one that are in my little library. So yeah, I still want to step in and do a superhero story or two. I've got I've got a couple like Swamp Thing stories in my head.
that would be great.
Yeah, a lot of I don't know. I love that story where the Thing and Sandman ran into each other in a bar and they decide not to fight but just sit and have a beer and talk. Like that's it's like Marvel 2-in-1
Sure.
28 or 31 or something like right in there.
Yeah, yeah. No, God, I was talking last night on this very show. Tom King and Eddie Muller, the great TCM noir host, and a couple guys from Noir City magazine. We were all talking, and truly, like one of my favorite Batman scenes is at the end of The Killing Joke when he really gets like real with the Joker, and it's like, look, one of us is going to kill the other one. Please let me help you. And
Right.
and the Joker has a real moment back, and it's like, I know, I'm sorry, I'm too far gone.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, man. And Bendis always says, and I agree with him. We've seen every fist fight a million times, but what we haven't seen are really good, intense conversations.
Yeah.
And truly, like going back to Superman and Luthor and Batman and the Joker, it's like, no, you really could have some interesting moments. God, Elliot Maggott, do you remember that great novel that he did in the '70s? It was called Last Son of Krypton, and
Oh,
it's a prose paperback, and it was
right.
in that classic Silver Age,
Hmm.
time period. So, like the whole thing of Luthor and Superboy knowing each other as kids, and they really were best friends at one point. And it's like, Luthor really knows the man, and then it's
Right.
like that's great. I love that ending scene in Kingdom Come when they're
Uh-huh.
at like the
Mhm.
Planet Krypton restaurant, and Bruce is like to Clark, he's like, "Oh yeah, I caught Luthor trying to hack the back computer or whatever," and he goes, "Oh, he says hello by the way," and you see this great like anticipation on Clark's face, like, "Really?" And Bruce is like, "No." And it's like, no, he still hates you, dumbass. It's like, I know you want him to like you and everything. It's like, no, sorry. And I mean, no, those are the great things. And again, we've read these characters for so many years. We really do. They're characters in print in our brains. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, when a great writer can really put two characters together. God, I'd love to see you write a great scene of, Swamp Thing with, Batman or Superman and people like
I would
that.
love to do that. I've been itching and gearing up. I wanted to do one where one of the new gods was killed, and then it's like a murder mystery where they're trying to figure out who the murderer is.
Oh
But then
man.
I saw somebody else do that. It's like, oh crap! Like now so that's like, yeah, I've got to jump on it before all my stupid ideas are done by somebody else.
Would you ever want to do, and I don't know how much you did it even back in the day with Too Much Coffee Man, but like, would you ever want to do like ciphers of, all right, clearly this is kind of a street level Batman character, but like, God, like what's happening at Ahoy? There's another publisher I would love to see you work with, Shannon, because so many of them really understand. Mark is obviously there doing his stuff, but man, those guys get humor, and I really
I've been,
love what
yeah,
they're doing.
I've been talking to them, and yeah, I was ramping up to do this robot story, and then the Mueller project came in, and
Okay,
then stepped back. I would love to write some, and then have artists who are better than me draw these pieces out.
okay,
I did one for Dark Horse where I was just clearly ripping off Marvel superheroes, and then writing. I did a villain house set of stories where it's like the Vulture and the Owl and all these characters
sure.
that I just like that kind of. I did Son of Satan. I always loved Son of
Big fan.
Satan.
I haven't. Have you watched yet? Do you have Hulu?
No, no.
Do you know? There is a Hellstorm or Hellstrom a show. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, that breaks my heart because they're going to take. I want to do one where he's in a rock and roll band and his buddies keep going like, "Make a deal with the devil," and he's like, "No, I'm not going to tap my dad." he says, like, I'm going to do this on my own. We're not going to make a deal with it. Like, absolutely not. Like, it would be, I don't know. That was kind of the
I'm
just his
hip.
character and how pissed off he is at his father, where he's kind of a Satanist, but then hates his dad. So there's this love hate Satanism.
Do you watch Lucifer, the TV show, at all?
I watched the first. I've been meaning to watch it, but it was pretty funny.
It is funny, and I love Mike Carey's series, the comic series, the original series. That said, I really love the TV show, and my buddy Joe Henderson is the showrunner of it,
wow.
and it's kicking ass on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have they're in midway through season 5, the other half of season 5. They're going to put out probably in 2021 at some point, and then they're making season 6 now. That's going to be the final season, and I'm so glad that it did as well as it did and survived. Getting the axe from Fox and Netflix going, hey, we'll take it over. And it really is. It's a terrific show, and it really does a great job of both playing out the supernatural end of it, but also just the everyday stuff. And really, it's just this great combination, and it's just a funny show.
I'll pick it up again. Yeah, I've been meaning to. It's like I think I was watching that, and then I just started it, and then something else came in and derailed because I'd been hearing good things. So I was like, oh, this, and I need some kind of background distraction. And then lately, all I've been doing is watching. I switch back and forth between Rachel Maddow and Hannity, and it's driving me crazy. Like my mind is.
Do you watch Fox just to kind of see what's going on, or are you? I mean,
yeah. I want to know. I want to know. It's like, okay, how is the left being interpreted? What is being said? And like right now, the big push is saying, oh, the left is a bunch of crazy socialists, and they've got this agenda to destabilize America, and there's a conspiracy of this and that. And it's always like the left this and left that. And it's like, and then they'll talk about the radical left. And it's like, no, Biden is essentially like, I know radical left. Like I know some of these people that are genuine anarchists, and they are not. This is not an anarchist agenda. I don't know. It's
I hear you, man.
Yeah, I want to understand it, and I want to understand what is being fed to.
Right.
All these the voting block that's happened.
Absolutely.
And where the fear, there's a lot of fear, and there's fear on the left too. That's MSNBC left.
Agreed.
Where it's saying, oh, look, here's all this scary stuff that's happening, and a coup, and this and that. And, I do want to understand it, and I think it's. I don't like giving the eyeballs to support the ratings, but at the same time, whatever, I'm the draw.
No, I agree, and it's. Do you think Trump is going to try and do his own TV network?
The network thing. Yeah, I think he's definitely. He tends to do test balloons, so, he tests out ideas. He throws a lot of different ideas against a wall and sees what fits. And that's why a lot of times he'll say things that he'll contradict himself, sometimes even in the same sentence. And he'll just, like, "Make America Great" was a throwaway line, and then it gets, like, picked up. Or "Lock Her Up" is another one.
Oh, yeah.
He just tests markets. And so that's what he's doing right now. Fox is definitely starting to turn against, like they know where the wind is blowing in terms of politics.
No, I agree. And also in 2016, during the campaign, when he was still not sure of the results, clearly he was on Facebook video a lot. And it really did seem like he was setting up a media, platform for himself. And it's going to be interesting. I know Howard Stern recently said, yeah, good luck running a news network. And it's like, yeah, but it's different running an opinion network. And again, I point to you going on, RT television and stuff, and there's an opinion network right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting post presidency, and of course, unfortunately, we're not gonna have a choice. He's gonna make noise, and we'll see if he ends up being Abe Simpson yelling at clouds, or if he really does still have the pull. But if anything, and again, I'm sure I'm telling something that everybody really does know that's likely watching this, but if anything, the election proved that A, we did elect a centrist,
Hmm.
and B, I consider myself an old fashioned liberal and would label myself a progressive, and I like a lot of the ideas from the left. But that said, the general population said we're not ready for that, and
Yeah.
ultimately it's compromise, and it's that's the great frustration. And it does seem, and forgive me everybody if this seems like I'm leaning left, but it does seem the Democrats are the ones saying, hey, let's compromise. And sadly, there are these GOP strategists who are like, no, there's winning and losing, and compromise is another word for losing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, because if you really look at history, that's how progress is made. We'll go this far. We know you want to go this far. We're not going to let you. Fine, then we'll go this far. We'll get halfway there. And I mean, God, I was talking to a friend this morning, and we were talking about Lyndon Johnson and
Hmm.
how Lyndon Johnson was the great compromiser and the guy that really made things happen prior to getting involved with Vietnam, when he really was like running the Senate and early in even in his presidency as well. And you look at the Civil Rights Act, and that guy, man, took on the crackerest of crackers and is like, look, I know you don't like this, but would you like to be defined 100 years from now as being one of the guys holding back what is obviously happening, or would you like to be someone for the history books that broke through and is like, oh no, this is one of the first guys that said, yeah, it's time for equal rights. And that argument worked, and I mean, with enough people to get
Yeah.
it passed. I
Yeah.
mean, and I love that movie, the HBO movie, and I know it was a play before that, All the Way,
Yeah.
with Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston's holy
Yeah,
crap, that guy is good. Like,
he's transformative. He can. I
yeah.
love the Trumbo movie as well, and it
Right.
really
Yeah.
like go from Breaking Bad to Trumbo to All the Way, and it's the same guy, and it's like, holy shit, this guy can literally. He's a chameleon. He can be anything.
It's still like the conspiracy theory that Malcolm in the Middle is um, that he lived through Breaking Bad, and then they were put in witness protection, and that's Malcolm in the Middle is the sequel to Breaking Bad, where it's like, I love that. Like, it
That's
really
fantastic.
adds a new layer to.
That's excellent. That's funny. There's a Henry Fonda movie with Lucille Ball, and it's based on a real story. It sounds like the Brady Bunch, Yours, Mine, and Ours, where
Oh.
he's got a ton of kids and Lucille Ball has a ton of kids, and they get together. And
Uh-huh.
apparently it's a real Northern California story. I talked to Tim Matheson, Otter from Animal House. He was in it as one of the older kids. Yeah. And he's like, it's based on a true story. But I love it because it's Henry Fonda and it's Van Johnson, and they're both Navy men. And in my head, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Mr. Roberts and Mr. Merrick from the Cane Mutiny are Navy buddies. And it's like this is their adventures after their two movies of Mr. Roberts and the Cane Mutiny and stuff.
Yours, Mine, and Ours. I got it. I'll face that down. I love it.
It's hokey. It's so like late '60s hokey, but it is great, and it's great seeing like Tim Matheson. He's immortal.
Yeah.
He is clearly an immortal, like walking among us. And I tell him that when I met him, he's such a sweet guy. And we met via video, and I'm like, the guy's like in his 70s, and he looks like he's in his 50s. He looks amazing. And again, he was like a real teenager then, and then like 8 or 9 years later, he's playing in Animal House, and he's supposed to be a college guy. And he's just one of those him, John Stamos, and I think Rob Lowe.
Oh,
Are just blessed with, and also on the female side, I always say Bernadette Peters.
Oh yeah,
Bernadette Peters, my God, she's in her 70s, and she's looks like she looks amazing still.
Just amazing.
So
Yeah.
too goddamn funny, man.
I love it.
So are you an old movie guy? Are you a big old movie guy?
Yeah, I worked in a video store for a few years in Austin, and then what's funny is Mark worked in a video store too. So we're always pushing each other's limits of finding those edges of what we knew and didn't know. And yeah, I would pick a director and then go through and just watch all the films of the director.
Sure.
I didn't know a lot. I guess I had the UC Theater in Berkeley when I was growing up, so I'd just randomly go see movies that I, as a kid. But working at the video store, that's when I definitely was it was like just getting a film education.
I love the ease of streaming.
Yeah.
But what bums me out is I really, especially as the DVD era really hit, I love special features. And literally, if they made a streaming channel just of special features, I honestly, I'm so glad that people will pull that stuff and throw it on YouTube because really,
You're right.
I'm all about these behind the scenes documentaries. It's one of the reasons why I love Turner Classic Movies so much as well. And yeah, and I really worry. I mean, they don't. Obviously, all the big studios they're moving to streaming because it's cheaper than cranking out videos.
Yeah.
Or hard media, physical media.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really worry that it's gonna. I have a feeling it'll be like vinyl with music, and it'll be specialty stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I'm bummed. I mean, I have. How many do you have? Do you subscribe to streaming networks?
A little bit.
What do you have?
What do I have? Just a Netflix, Amazon, and then a little bit of HBO every now and again. I wait about every 6 months. I'll subscribe.
Do you have HBO Max right now? Do you have access to HBO Max?
Yeah, sort of backdoor.
I'm them. Yeah. That's all right. No, we all. Hey, man, I know a million, and really, it's like the 20-somethings have been doing it obviously for years. But I share. People share. People share subscriptions. Sure, absolutely, man. Yeah, and they leapfrog. It's like, hey, I really want to see the Queen or the Crown, so I'll get Netflix for a couple months, and then I'll jump onto Hulu and watch. Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah,
I have Disney as well.
Mm-hmm,
and I'm such a Star Trek nerd. I had to get CBS All Access. And my God, man, I am yelling at my TV more than like, oh, thank God Star Trek's back. I love Star Trek. I've been watching it for 50 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 56 in a couple of weeks.
But the new Star Trek, I mean, it's action adventure in a way that I didn't feel. I mean, some of that second season I really liked with Star Trek. That was the new one that was pretty.
Oh, of Discovery.
Yeah.
Did you? Okay.
I've heard this third season isn't. They haven't quite hit it out of the.
Well, it's halfway. It's like or a third of the way done. I forget if it's only going to be 10 episodes or 15 episodes or 13. I can't remember.
I love the special effects, though. I gotta say.
Oh my God! It looks. Oh no! It looks amazing.
It's beautiful, and the acting I think is pretty. It's a couple of people, but man, the alien guy who.
Doug Jones.
Oh,
Saru. Yeah, he's terrific. He's
I'll
amazing.
watch him in anything. He's so good.
And I'm so happy for him, man, because he started off just as the physical character of Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies, and thank God David Hyde Pierce did him the greatest solid. And it's just like, let Doug do it. Jesus, he sounds enough like me, and he's really the guy that's acting his ass off on screen. Just let him do it. And thank God, man. I mean, we all fell in love with him even more, Doug Jones. And I'm every opportunity he gets, it's like, way to go, man. Keep going. Keep going.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you there, but I can't deny, I think the actors are doing the best they can with the material they get. Honestly, man, it's dumb Star Trek. And to me, that's an embarrassment because Star Trek was always the smartest sci-fi show out there. But
at the same time, like, I will watch it because,
Me too.
Star Trek. The cartoon I'm not very interested in because
that's interesting.
Like Chrome doing the Bible. It's like, oh, they're gonna make a bunch of jokes. Like, no, it's already funny. Like, you don't need to do a parody. Like,
I understand.
Work to being serious, and it'll still be funny and serious and good. It's
sure
the Thing and Sandman having a beer together. Like that, you don't need to make that silly or wacky. Like it is ridiculous having the Thing and Sandman. Like,
I'm with you. No, you're right, man. No, some of the best moments of the regular show and the spin-offs from the 80s and 90s were just nice character moments that happened to be funny.
And Data, I loved the Data arc. The Star Trek stuff. I'm with you. I'm all in on any.
Did you like Picard?
Yeah.
Did you? Okay.
I did. I mean, it hurt me a little bit because I was wanting something other than what it was, and I
Me
thought
too, man.
they missed so many opportunities of Old Man Logan type
Yes.
of, and I thought that they had done that. I thought it was going to be the Picard when he's doing the time travel and the Borg stuff. What was that like? That towards the end of it was like the last season where he was a wine grower and he'd have those weird flashbacks and it was kind of this melancholy Picard. I thought this is what they're going to do, and they just didn't do any of that. And I was like, yeah, all right. It was nice to see him. So that's what I felt like. It was like not what I want, but I'm happy to see it. And yeah, I wish they would start hitting it out of the ballpark because all the bases are loaded. I feel they've got, and everybody, all the A-list talent wants to be a part of it. So you've got, and you've got an audience that's ready to watch it too. So whatever they put out, so everything is there. So how you don't hit a home run, put your Hank Aaron to swing the bat. Like put up some. Don't do these dumb shows.
Shannon, honestly, it boils down to writing, and I just don't think they've got the talent there, and especially in this era of what they call peak TV and this second golden age of television, where writing is clearly out of its mind amazing. It just isn't there, and it bums me out. It really does bum me out.
Yeah.
So what what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Too much, man.
Also. Yeah.
What? And again, hey man, literally, and I truly mean this. I have a review show that I do on Thursdays of every new Star Trek episode. I started doing it with Picard, and I did it with Lower Decks, the cartoon, and I'm doing it now with the fourth season of Discovery. I'm sure I'll do it with the Nickelodeon kids show. Two of my favorite comic book writers and television writers, Julie and Shauna Benson, are on the Prodigy writing team, and they co-wrote the first season with the writers' room.
It might actually be good then.
I love them. They are such smart writers, and they're great people. And I'm truly hoping every week, like I was starting to say, I truly am like, all right, maybe I'll like this episode. And I'll even be honest, I've liked this season of Discovery slightly better than the first two.
Okay.
And at least it's feeling more like Star Trek. I'm really hoping the Christopher Pike show, as they keep telling us, will be more episodic and more traditional in its storytelling. And it's like, because I just think at the end of the day, they are not good writers at the one story seasons that a lot of peak TV represents. And it's like, hey, Blue Bloods is a good procedural show that doesn't need to tell one story in a season. There are examples of quality television that still do one episode, one story a week. And it's like, you're not good at what you think you're amazing. And it's like, and also I really hate how they really, from a PR standpoint, they beat their chest in terms of also not. Sorry, man. I'm having, I don't know why we're getting people trying to jump in, and it's like, hey, guess what? I don't know how they got the link. But,
I might have posted the wrong link or.
It's all right, man. It's okay. The Matt Wagner did that too on Saturday. It's all right, man. And shame on me, honestly, Shannon. I should have sent you the there's a watching link and there's a participation link. It's okay, man. But
an analogy to that, I think, folds into comics, because comic books, I pick up comics of the X-Men and it's like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm really frustrated by it. And then like same with some of the current TV stuff, like, turn on the new, I don't know, Buffy spinoff or whatever. And it was like, but the old, that like an old comic, like the Origin of the Fantastic Four, I think is like 12 pages or something.
That's
and
right.
the amount of story that Kirby and Stan Lee were putting into these comics was just amazing. And the visual storytelling that they did, and then doubling up with the writing, which was, kind of terrible, but sort of great. But it was a story, and it had an arc, and it was just such a beautiful little piece. And then when they did a 2-issue, like, Galactus or something, all of a sudden it felt epic because it's this 2-issue span, and it reads as epic too. It would be nice to go back to some of those arcs.
100%, man. Absolutely. And
I think comics have that potential of cranking down a lot of story into a small amount of space.
absolutely. Yeah, I was again talking to Matt Wagner this weekend. I was talking about his Batman stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then he took a lot of those original Detective Comics 6-page stories and turned them into bigger stories. Or the better example is his run on Sandman Mystery Theater. He
Oh,
literally took
yeah.
so many of those 8-page stories
Uh-huh.
and fleshed them out. And I thought that was just so amazing, not only to go back to the character, but literally the source material itself, and saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh no, there's so much more here that we can do now." And really, I truly one of my favorite uh, comic books of the period. It was so amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
no, I'm with you,
I've been
man.
rereading a lot of the early, before Fantastic Four, like the monster comic books and the Amazing Fantasy stuff, and
Oh yeah,
they're all, basically Twilight Zone episodes, and even the lettering for Amazing Fantasy is the Twilight Zone lettering. I think Fantastic Four is Twilight Zone lettering too.
oh that's interesting. Yeah, I also loved that monster period of
Mm-hmm.
Marvel pre superhero. And in fact, right now, Alex Ross, I'm talking to him on Friday afternoon, and he's doing Marvels, and he's fleshing out those eras that he didn't cover in the original
Oh,
series. And in fact, I want to make sure I get this right. I know Hilary Barta was drawing a lot of the big Marvel like Fig Fang Fam Foon
Hilary
stuff.
Barta is so good. Holy
That's I can totally see you guys being simpatico. So
man.
that's great. He's a Chicago guy. He's a good friend.
Oh, well, tell him that hats off to him for, like enormous amounts of respect.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely, man. Have you met? Have you guys met?
briefly, once or twice, we're mutual friends with Kieran Dwyer. So, and, like when we see each other on Twitter or whatever, there's, always tip of the hats or whatever, but
Sure.
haven't hung out with it. I'd just be fanboy if I hung out with him.
Oh no, man. Well, like seriously, if the three of us are at a show, absolutely, man. We'll break the ice and have it comfortable and everything. Don't worry.
I'd love it.
Shaw was wondering. He says Fantastic Four was one of his first comics. When did you guys first run in with Kirby? My answer is both the Marvel Treasury editions
Uh-huh.
were my first introduction to the Marvel Universe back in the 70s, including the Fantastic Four Galactus saga, probably the first FF story I read, and
Oh,
also
no.
those great reprints of like Marvel. I want to say it was called Marvel Superhero, and it was
Yeah,
rerunning Kirby's Captain
right,
America stuff.
right. Yeah,
How
what
about
was
you?
it?
What was your first Kirby stuff?
I think it was Fantastic Four that I liked a lot, and then X-Men. I just decided to collect all the X-Men, and then I got him to sign. I bought some of the early X-Men, and so I got him to sign them Bob Schreck ran a convention in San Francisco that I went to when I was a
Sure.
kid, and had Kirby sign them. And then
Wow.
years later, I went, with my little zines of Too Much Coffee Man when I was
Yeah.
first like selling those out of my back pocket. And I'm walking down San Diego and I see some comic books. So I do this abrupt turn and I knock into this old man, and he starts like pinwheeling his arms, and his wife catches them. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And I look, it was Jack Kirby. And I was like, Christ, man, I just knocked over Jack, like, out of my way, old man. Like, I got to get
Wow.
this comic, so. But I met him a couple times in San Diego, and he was always, yeah, it was neat. It was really,
Did you show him Too Much Coffee Man? Did you show
no,
him your scenes?
God, no.
No.
I
Okay, I
stole,
understand.
like, you look at some of those early Too Much Coffee, like, I stole all sorts of, I still steal from Kirby. I mean, like, I just did a thing about fighting COVID, a little education comic, and I took a lot of the Kirby, the body stuff that he does,
Sure.
the fight scenes, the way he and
Laid him out and everything. Yeah.
yeah, it was the crap. I hated that stuff as a kid because it wasn't realistic. It wasn't Neil Adams. But now I just think, man, the abstractions that he did, I just think, you know, it's like as a kid you end up liking Dolly because he's able to do all these like
Oh
little
God. Yeah.
detaily crap, and you're like, Picasso, whatever. And then as you get older, you're like, oh, Picasso, this is, kind of the same.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. You're killing me. So, what are your immediate future plans as far as making stuff?
I want to. I mean, we'll see. Like, I just finished this COVID thing. It's a little education comics. It was like a 15-page thing for Down syndrome kids, and
Oh, that's great.
it was really fun. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to do this educational. It was nice to spin off of the Mueller and go from something that's political into something that, you know, not political or should
Right.
be
Shouldn't
not
be political. I'm with you, man.
Yeah, and it was very well intentioned, and I've met some of these organizations, and the people are just so generous, like really good people. It's really nice. Next, I want to do. I don't know exactly. I'm trying to feel what to do next, but I wouldn't mind doing something about uh, some of these weird childhood things. Like my mom took me to, or she took herself, but we went and saw Jim Jones as a kid. So I have these memories of Jim Jones.
Guyana Jim Jones?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Kool-Aid. So every time I hear, oh, drink the Kool-Aid, I'm always just like this.
Wow. So good Lord, like what was that like being a kid? And for people who don't know, this was a cult leader that sadly in Guyana, as Shannon just referenced, drink the Kool-Aid. He kind of had his followers drink poison Kool-Aid, and it was a mass killing. It's a terrible thing. So you saw him, obviously, thank God, your mom didn't.
Well, my mom was just interested in events, and so she's like, "Oh, here's this guy that he had a strong political following. I mean, political connections, social following. Like a lot of people wanted to go hear him and hear what he had to say, and so she took me. Yeah, we went a couple times. I mean, it's not like we were followers or anything.
I'm hip. No.
About it. So my memories are that of a 4-year-old.
Wow.
Seeing and hearing. So yeah, I have memories of Jim Jones up on stage. It was kind of intolerable to me as a kid because it was loud, but
I can appreciate that too. Sure.
But like in and of itself, it wasn't a big deal. But in a historical context, it's like, oh, this is an interesting thing. So to talk about cults and talk about a transition of a spiritual leader moving into a cult leader, moving into a mass suicide event, like that.
Wow.
That progression. So I can look at it, and I want to do that as a short story. I don't have enough experience to say, oh, here's. But I like what Durf does, where he'll research something and kind of tell like a little historical piece, and then he'll have a little bit of his own relationship to something. So my friend Dahmer, it's sort of about Durf, but really it's about the culture and then about Dahmer. And so I want to do something like that, a little bit about Jim Jones, and then later in college, just some weird connections in college with Huey Newton was my landlord. He was a Black Panther leader, and that he's a landlord when I was, 18.
Crazy.
Yeah, just a weird coincidence. And again, like my experience is kind of stupid and irrelevant, but the cultural impact that he had is profound. And to talk about that and like his progression of being a revolutionary and what they did, good and bad, and their intentions, and then where that went to, like where he wound up, either probably being killed in a crack deal gone bad.
Wow.
Could have been he was killed politically. I don't know. I tend to think I lean on the non-conspiracy that it was really a drug deal gone bad. But
I'm with you. No, and you're right. And certainly, today, again, with these media platforms, if they're not full-on cults, there are certainly these opinion leaders that are gathering their people and having a following. Good Lord, you saw my my promo at the beginning of the show. My League of Word Balloon listeners. We're a benevolent group. We're not. No. We're as I sit on my own couch. We're very much just past the bag of Funyuns, and we'll watch some Sanford and Son reruns, and everything will be great.
Oh, that is one of the best theme songs I've like.
Quincy Jones.
Oh man, just amazing, amazing theme song.
Red Fox,
Red
man,
Fox. I gotta
what a
get
career!
Records too. I've been meaning to chase down some old Red Fox records.
He's the best, and truly, like, and this blew my mind. This was in the '60s. He and Bill Cosby had a comedy club together, and Cosby, before we knew, was very politically active in the '60s and '70s, and he wanted to put in the club like political activism posters and stuff. And Fox is like, "Are you nuts?" And he goes, "What? What? This is our people. This is our cause." He's like, "Yeah, you want to piss off 50% of our potential ticket buyers?" He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And they didn't stay in business long because he's like, "No, man." He goes, "No, comedy's for everybody." And it's just like little lessons like that. But also, I love his career, especially early on, when he would do those what they called party albums, and he would do his comedy albums and stuff. It was racy shit for the time.
Oh, Red Fox is dirty as anything. That's what I've only heard clips. I just picked up I watched that Abby Hoffman Chicago 7 thing, and I was like, I gotta get that Abby Hoffman record. It's terrible, but it was really interesting to hear. I want the old Red Fox records.
No, and it's funny mentioning Abby Hoffman. Now here's a complicated guy, and certainly not a good guy. Not Abby Hoffman. Pardon me as I'm burping, but Al Capp.
Al Capp. Yeah, talk to Dennis Kitchen about Al Capp, man.
I did. Funny you should say that. I actually did talk to Dennis Kitchen about Al Capp.
He's the guy who knows all that. Yeah.
That book, and honestly, since I've been doing video, I appreciate you saying Dennis Kitchen. I should get Dennis on video.
Oh, definitely.
Because he has such great stories.
Oh.
And as you said about the Abby Hoffman album, there's a really interesting, and I believe it's still on YouTube. There's an Al Capp album of him doing college lectures and challenging the audience. Because as I'm sure you know, he was a liberal. Yeah. And then really the 60s, tune out, get high and tune out, whatever the phrase was. The hippie movement really turned him off to liberal politics. He became incredibly conservative. I know that the famous John and Yoko bed-in.
That was the first time I'd heard about Al Capp, and I just thought, oh, what an a-hole.
Yeah, and he's just yelling at them while hey, we're all about peace. And it's like, get out of bed, you hippie, get a haircut. And it's so hilarious. And truly, the Dennis Kitchen book is just mind-blowing about what, again, back to the Bill Cosby territory, about what a predator the guy was.
Horrifying, yeah, absolute villain, yeah.
But like the most influential cartoonist of his era, and truly a national celebrity of people saying, hey, what do you think of McCarthyism? What do you think of when he was still liberal? And also willing to take on a lot of political things in Little Abner. So it's, again, a very dark person when you get to know him personally, but a very interesting and complicated career as a cartoonist and as a media person of his era.
Worth studying is what I feel is like. This is, and a lot of times now we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We're like, oh, let's get rid of this person. It's like, no, this guy is a major talent, major intellectual, really a big influencer and a monster. But
yes,
this is a complicated thing to digest.
People are absolutely, man. People are complex, and it sounds like, if I am reading you correctly, we're both anti-cancel culture, because if you do that, then you miss the complexity of the person, but also there might be a vein of truth or realism. And again, I am saying this, I am not advocating his personal behavior at all.
Caveat culture. We're all about caveats these days. The Fearless Fosdick, which he did, as I was getting into, because I was trying to figure out how Dick Tracy was done, because I was doing the Mueller, I was wanting to do.
I could see that similarity. Sure, Mueller as Dick Tracy. Sure.
Yeah, and all the cast of characters in the Trump side, I just felt were very much like Prune Face and mumbles, and I was just like, this is just straight up Dick Tracy. But then I'm reading it, it's like, oh, Fearless Fosdick ended up being, I was like, oh, this is kind of Dick Tracy, but
Totally.
doing Dick Tracy better than Dick Tracy. Like he was doing a parody, but really what we think of Dick Tracy is we're really thinking about Fearless Fosdick.
That's so funny. You're
And
absolutely
that's
right.
where the cover was very much pulling. Dennis Kitchen did Fearless Fosdick collection, and just that the body posture I lifted straight out of the. I mean, that's, I hate that, I'm stealing from Al Cap, but I was totally stealing from Al Cap there. I mean, like that's.
He was a
He's
brilliant satirist.
It's nothing else.
Really, he and Walt Kelly are like the two great satirists of their comic strip era.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it's an important story to read because of the talent, and also to read the dark side as well, because he's a guy that felt he could get away with shit because he was a celebrity. And I don't know, did you read that Kitchen book?
I haven't, but Dennis Kitchen told me a bunch of the stories that he wasn't allowed to put in there. So I've
Oh wow!
dirtier, long.
Even more.
And what's funny too is like is after, okay, so Sunday night, San Diego, get together with Dennis Kitchen and a few other people, and so I'm hanging there with a couple millennials, and Dennis starts telling a story, and then some millennial starts trying to tell their, like, oh, I blah blah blah, and I was like, shut up, we're listening to Dennis Kitchen, like he has something to share, you don't, like let's give agents, like this guy has a story, like, and you'll never hear it again, like this is these, like
Shannon, I've had that happen so many times, and it happened to me with Howard Chaykin.
Oh.
And we were in a big group dinner, and thank God it wasn't my only hangout with Howard. And it was the same thing. And Howard was telling us great stories about 1970s New York. And this putz is like, well, in the 90s in New York. And it's like, shut the fuck up.
No, listen to Howard Chaykin. He is
and you're 100% right about Dennis. And God, and seriously, I'm so glad Dennis came up in conversation. The reason why I bring up the book regarding Cap, I didn't realize the man who brought him down, ironically, Fox News veteran Britt Hume.
That's right.
Because he was a leg man for Jack Anderson, the great newspaper columnist who would write these scathing essays about what was going on in Washington and really nationally. And Britt Hume's like, hey, Al Cap is abusing college women.
And pursued him for what, it was like 3 years he worked on that story or something. I mean, he researched it and did all the little pieces to pull together little bits of information from all over the place, and then did follow-up in a way that would do a gumshoe press.
Right.
And it was just an incredible piece of work where he trailed them and got,
And Anderson initially had that reflexive old school reaction of, well, I'm sure there's two sides to every story. Right. This is a celebrity. Let's not hurt his reputation. And Britt Hume, I have to keep saying, Fox News Britt Hume is like, hey, this guy is a monster. Yeah. We got to take him down.
Yeah.
And finally Anderson relented and is like, all right, we'll run with it. And that's what destroyed Al Cap. And suddenly in the late 70s, newspapers started dropping Little Abner, and he was done.
As he was done. I mean, he deserved a bad downfall. Yeah.
Totally. No, and it's truly, everybody, if you haven't read the Dennis Kitchen Al Cap book, it is amazing because it really is from his beginnings to his meteoric rise to his decades of influence to his embarrassing fall, and well-deserved. And it's a great story. It is a story about the history of comic strips and cartooning, and I can't recommend it enough. It is Absolutely. And that was my impetus for talking to Dennis, and then we got into underground comics and his relationship with Will Eisner and stuff. So, God, man, as we're talking, I will definitely be emailing Dennis because it's been 2 years since I talked to him. It was the end of 2018. That's when I talked to him.
He's one of the reasons I missed San Diego this year. Like,
sure,
as I, it's like, oh, it's sort of a relief to not have to set up, and it's a relief all of the build up, the breakdown, the 1 week of depression following the show as you lay on the floor crying alone in the dark. naked. You know, there are things that I miss. They're like, oh, hanging out and hearing stories from Dennis Kitchen or Chaikin or these people that are really just heavy hitters and really interesting people with great stories. And yeah, it's a really it in a way, it's like the regret that I had to, like, as a kid, the lack of appreciation that I had for Kirby. It's like, I will never do that again. Like, I need to appreciate the moment and appreciate the people that swing past me in this life. And I just forever regret that I didn't like try to appreciate her. It's like, another old comic artist, whatever.
And the generations that are older than us, because I always say it's not wisdom, it's perspective.
Yeah.
Because anything you're going through, an older person has been through it as well. I truly, during these tough economic times of the last 20 years, and I'd hear college students getting out of school and say, man, I can't find a job in my career. And it's like, yeah, it's called your 20s. That's what happens, and you got to take these shit jobs just to put food on the table and pay your bills. That's what happens, man, and it sucks. And we all get it, but it's like, again, it's the older generation. And say, fuck you, old man. Okay, boomer. That is like my favorite. Like, fuck you. Like, it's like, man, I'm really sorry that you feel that way, because you don't know what you're missing. And what we're talking about with Kitchen and Chaikin and these great guys. They have the stories because they've lived the life, and you'll learn so much if you just. I mean, this is what I try to do with Word Balloon. Maybe I'm not doing a good example of it tonight, talking Shannon, but truly
phenomenal. You're great. I'm not. I don't have the stories that Dennis Kitchen does.
You're doing good, man. What are you talking about? It was really it's cool hearing about Cuba and truly what you did with the Mueller Report and the Bible and working with Russell and everything. Seriously, I'm really glad that there are still avenues for you to find and keep going. Tony Millionaire, I talked to him a couple of years ago, and being a guy that does illustrations in magazines and stuff like that, and just where magazines are right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I still have my New Yorker subscription because I still think it's a vital piece of journalism and essays and the like, and I've always loved the quality of it, and it was always a pleasure buying the magazine. And now, in the COVID times, I'm like, I'm going to get it online because I really do miss reading it and stuff.
Yeah.
And I get it online, and I love it.
I'm going to miss Tubin in there, though. I'll tell you that.
I know. I mean, again, I understand, and I can appreciate that. And that was really, really stupid.
Unbelievable.
But it bums me out. I can't deny it because, and then sadly, this is where we are. One fuck up, and you might be out.
You're out. Yeah. One strike, you're out. Yeah. Although that was a pretty big strike that he did.
Well, it was really dumb, man. I mean, good Lord. Guys can.
Writer. Holy cow, man. That guy, just amazing writing.
Yeah, an incredible writer, an incredible broadcaster. I mean, I say this as someone that, did radio and television for 30 years. And truly, a very effective communicator, unless he's on a Zoom chat. And maybe not the best time to wind your watch, if you will. That's my euphemism for it, winding your watch.
Just hilarious. I mean, I wish it didn't just tickle me pink when I hear that story.
Well, every guy is like, hey, man, we're guys. We get it. But Jesus Christ, then? Now? Wait, 10 minutes, It'll still be there.
Man.
Unbelievable. I know. It truly. And again, such a brilliant guy to be tripped up by something so basic.
Dumb. Yeah. And he's like, I thought I had it on mute. You probably did have it on mute. You didn't have the camera turned off. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's hilarious, man. Jesus Christ.
It's pretty
This is good. And actually, Shannon, this might be a good place to put a button on it and wrap. Poor Jeffrey Tubin. We switched from Al Cap to Jeffrey Tubin. Oh my
Absolutely.
God. That's amazing. Dude, congratulations! Truly, the Mueller Report, everybody from IDW, it's great. It is it's absolutely worth your time reading, and truly is a clear depiction of what happened, and hopefully there are going to be consequences.
Funny stories in there. That's what it did surprise me. The narratives of like the Russian meeting at the Trump Tower. The stuff with Chris Christie coming in, Trump's kids, trying to set things up, and they're incompetent. I mean, it is genuinely funny and interesting, and not what the Mueller Report is not what people. It's definitely not what Barr sold it as, and it's not how people talk about it. So this, yeah, it's a good way to learn it quickly and simply, keep track of the characters, and hopefully laugh once or twice in it.
God, I wish I had the money, because it would make a great animated series. It really would, taking your art and really putting some motion to it and stuff. Because you're right, some of these stories are just insane. And I mean, this isn't just the gang that couldn't shoot straight. I mean, this is just really like, it's as John Oliver would say on his show, stupid Watergate. It really is. I mean, really, like, it's almost an embarrassment to compare it to Watergate, because Watergate was much more covert and organized, and this was just, yeah, we'll take money. Yeah, we'll take a meeting.
Yeah,
then we didn't have any meetings, and it's like, yeah, you did.
And then you lied about it.
It's infuriating, but it is a more palatable way to look at it if you're reading what Shannon drew and laid out.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. No, this has been great, and truly, stay in touch. When there's something new, please come back, man. It's great seeing you, and great to check in and get another great example of the humor of Shannon Wheeler. Absolutely, man.
I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for hanging out, man.
Anytime.
Take care. Shannon Wheeler, everybody. Thank you very much, Shannon, and thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed tonight's Word Balloon Live. Tomorrow, it's going to be our usual Star Trek review of the latest episode of Discovery. And then very late in the night, to accommodate West Coast time, it's me, Gabe Hardman, and the crew watching another episode of The Outer Limits. And we'll be talking about that fantastic show in great length. And it's going to be a cool episode. It's Barry Morse and Carol O'Connor in a pretty funny, weirdly Outer Limits episode. I'm looking forward to talking about that. Friday afternoon, if all goes well, we'll be talking to the great Alex Ross and what he's doing right now at Marvel. Maybe get a couple of Batman memories. And don't forget, a week from Friday, it's Black Friday, and it's going to be Bat Black Friday. Me and the Mainframe Comic guys, we're going to be doing a lot of live panels with great Batman creators celebrating Batman Black and White and also Batman Catwoman. Because those are great books that we are very excited about. Great opportunity to talk to a lot of your favorite Batman creators. It's going to be an all-night event, so we can hit both coasts, and a lot of great panels about the art of Batman, Batman Black and White, Batman Catwoman, and a final panel that we're doing hanging out in the Batcave with a bunch of Bat creators just hanging out and just swapping stories. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you'll join us for all that. Until then, thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay happy, and stay healthy. Thank you.